Hello and happy Halloween. I wanted to do a quick video blog about the masks that we wear in honor of this holiday. So the first thing I wanted to discuss is what are these masks and who wears them? First of all, we all wear them. I guarantee that at some point in your life, at least in the past, if not in the present, you have put on a face for the world that was not necessarily authentic to how you felt, what you thought, etc. And those are part of the mask that we wear, is how we present ourselves to the world, or the face that we put on as we engage with the world. So I want to discuss a little bit about the different kinds of masks that we wear. First, there's the happy masks, the ones that we put on when we try to tell the whole world that we have it all together. Or the everything is fine mask when you're grinning and bearing something terrible. Or the supermom mask that I can do it all and I can have the great job and the career and have amazingly well-behaved kids that are dressed to the nines and all of those things. Or the super funny mask, where that's how you present yourself to the world, as super funny, joking all the time, always happy. Now, no one of those things is a bad thing, but they're often how we present ourselves. Another common one is the exemplary employee, making sure your boss always thinks that you're totally on top of things, rather than, oops, I accidentally forgot that email. On the flip side, there can be the sad masks. I think about those, like the old school drama masks. There was like the super happy one and then the super sad one. And when I think about the sad ones, I think about the victims of the world, the people who have been through some junk. And to be fair, they kind of deserve to be allowed those feelings, but the mask comes into play when it's the identity that they take on in all circumstances and all days, in all relationships, and with, all circumstances, that there's always just kind of the cloud that goes over their head. They might come across as really solemn, or broken is a word that someone might use to describe them, hopeless. The other one is the angry mask. These are those tough guys or girls that you don't want to mess with. The kind of people that that they just kind of give up this vibe that if you mess with me, I'm going to mess right back, and you don't want to do that. And they're kind of a strong vibe, but also a little bit of a scary vibe. So they tend to keep people a little bit further. So those are the masks. And these aren't just one mask per person. So just because one person might always be the I'm fine, I have everything put together kind of person most of the time, that doesn't mean that in some circumstances they don't put on the don't mess with me mask. And that makes them feel safer. And that doesn't mean that in times when life gets rough that they're not allowed to feel hopeless or broken. So the masks can be changed out in different settings. They can be changed with different relationships. So the first thing to pay attention to is that behind every mask there is a face when you take that mask off, and behind that there is a story. So when you look at the people in your world and you feel like that maybe they're putting on some sort of mask as they interact with you, or maybe you are aware of your own mask that you're putting on, to be kind to yourself and to understand that there's a story behind that mask. There's a story behind that face. There's a reason why you've kind of adapted to presenting these masks to these people in your world. So why do we put on these masks? To protect ourselves. I mentioned that a little bit. Sometimes it can feel very protective to not be super vulnerable. It's vulnerable to be authentic, to be real, to share your real thoughts, your real feelings, your real emotions with people. That can be scary. So when we put on a mask and tell everybody everything's fine, even though our lives are falling apart and our friendships are falling apart, we're losing our jobs, or whatever is going on in our world, when we put on that mask, it's safer, because then those people aren't going to ask us more than, oh, fantastic, glad everything's fine. So it's safer because it doesn't have the emotional vulnerability. It is also a way to kind of keep ourselves distanced from people and from things and situations. It can also go on the offensive with those kind of angry masks, the people that are more likely to present hardened and kind of the more scary tough guy. That's, you know, a safety thing. It keeps people further out there, and it keeps people from messing with you. There's a lot of reasons that you might choose to use that mask in different situations. So what are some of the consequences for wearing masks? Well, first of all, when you are wearing masks most of the time, like I said, we all wear them some of the time, but when you are wearing them most of the time, you can become quite lonely, because the truth is that you cannot have true relationship with somebody who you cannot be authentic with and who isn't being authentic with you. So if you have two people that are both wearing masks, they're only going to know the mask. They're not going to know the person behind it. So you're not going to be able to build this true relationship that is going to be truly supportive of each other. So that's one of the first pieces, is that when we put on a mask, we distance ourselves from true relationship. So it's lonely. Second, we may feel like we're fooling others, and often we are. There's a lot of times where people don't see through our masks and they see only what we're presenting to them. And so we are kind of fooling them. But even more importantly, we are fooling ourselves. If we wear a mask every day of our lives, we start to even believe we've become that. There have been stories of actors who have played a role in a movie where maybe they were a villain or depressed or, you know, severely out of their normal character. And then when the movie ends and they get to break character and be themselves, they find a hard time breaking character because they put on that mask professionally as an actor for long enough that it's hard for them to transition back to who they truly are. The same is true when we do that in our own relationships. When we act like we have it all together all the time, we'll start to believe that we have it all together. And the problem with that is that then we're not able to deal with our junk. Because the thing is, the only way to deal with our junk is to acknowledge it. So when we fool ourselves in believing that everything is fine, or I have it all together, or when we convince ourselves that we are the victim, that we are broken, or when we convince ourselves that as the tough guy or gal that I can't get hurt, those are all setting us up for some challenges for the future. The next piece of that is that whenever we are wearing masks, that we become disconnected from our emotions, our dreams, our passions. When you are putting on a front to other people, just like I said, you're fooling yourself, you're also distancing yourself with yourself. So that sounds kind of weird, but when I'm constantly telling everybody everything's fine, I'm also ignoring the voices in my head that are going, no, they're not. Things are crappy right now. So it's really important that you recognize that the longer you're wearing those masks that say everything's fine, or any of the other masks, that you are disconnecting yourself from the whole rest of the realm of emotions, thoughts, dreams, all of those things. So, and that's kind of a big deal, because as you remove the mask, you can slowly start to get connected with them. But we need to have all of those emotions. We have them for a reason. The last one is because we are disconnected from ourselves, it is really hard for us to achieve our goals. So it's not that you can't. There are plenty of people that are really good at putting on faces for the world that are still very successful in achieving their goals, but they are also just continuing to live under that mask. But if part of your goals are relational, that you really want to build healthy relationships, like I mentioned, that's not going to help you. If part of your goal is to pursue your passion, if you're disconnected from your passion because you've been putting on a face for long enough, that's going to be very challenging. So those are really important things to think through, is how the masks you're wearing as you interact with people and in different situations are disconnecting you from yourself and your goals ultimately. So I wanted to quickly go over a couple of guidelines for removing your masks. There's a good quote by Andre Berthiaume, and he said, "We all wear masks, and the time comes when we cannot remove them without removing some of our own skin. So the longer we wear these masks, the harder it is to remove them. It's like they become fused with our skin. So as we pull them off, we kind of feel the pain and we kind of have to work through who we are. So some guidelines for doing that, if you don't want to keep wearing your mask, first is to choose safe people to remove that with. Some options for that are maybe some close friends that you know have a history of accepting you regardless of which mask you're presenting or if you were 100% authentic with them. So those aren't going to necessarily be people you just met, though sometimes that happens, but usually people that have a history of sharing life with you and not just popping into your life automatically. They tend to be people that are pretty authentic with you as well. Family may be safe people, but just because we're born into a family or adopted into a family does not necessarily mean that they're safe in that way. A therapist can be a great person to work on removing your mask with. First of all, it's a confidential setting, so they're not going to be telling anybody about any of these authentic things that you're sharing with them. But also because, you know, we're trained to be non-judgmental, and so we're able to hold whatever kind of junk you got to throw our way and accept you right where you are in your process. And we don't have any other biases outside of this room because we don't have any buy-in in your life. Like, you can walk away and at the end of the day, it's your life. And so I don't have any reason to convince you to do something, be something, or anything else. I want you to be you. So a therapist can be a great option for that. Also spiritual advisors, if it's a pastor, a rabbi, somebody that's like a mentor that you really trust, those are some great people that you could turn to for working on taking off your mask to find your true authentic self. The second one is safe situations. Not all situations are the right situations to be removing your mask for. For instance, if I'm having a really crappy day and the cashier at the grocery store says, "Hey, how are you?" I don't need to remove that mask and be like, "I have to tell you all these terrible things." That doesn't really seem necessary, isn't helpful for me or them. So sometimes I'm fine, or "I'm great, how are you today?" Or something minimal like, "It's been kind of a rough day, but I'll get through it." So not completely removing the mask with the wrong people, but also the wrong situations. The last one is to be prepared. So like I mentioned before, it might sting a little as you remove these masks and try to figure out who you really are. So be aware that it could be uncomfortable as you learn to remove your masks and to be authentic in these different situations. It could also be awkward. If you've gotten really good at presenting one of these faces, to try to present one that feels more in line with how you really feel could feel really awkward, like you're acting, even though it's actually the true authentic self. So that's part of what can be worked through when you have support for that. There could be all sorts of emotions that come up. As you are presenting your true authentic self, you're no longer going to be distancing yourself from your emotions. So that means you're going to be more connected with them. Yay! For people who are have been living disconnected from their emotions, that may not be as big of a yay as it is for us therapists who love to feel. No, but we also love it when our clients get really engaged with their emotions, because it kind of seems like you go from the black and white Kansas to the colorful Oz, that you'll start to feel all these things, but some of those things hurt. So be prepared that it's a whole new world when you start really getting in touch with that authentic self. Some people might reject you. That's another scary part of revealing your mask, is if I reveal my true self and I'm rejected, then that's my true self that's getting rejected, and that hurts. So that is something legitimate to be concerned about. And I think the hard part is getting to the point where you feel like it's okay if they reject me. That's not something about me, that says something about them. And again, as you're choosing the safe people to present it to, you'll find that the safe people are going to be accepting regardless of what you're presenting to them, because they love you. And the reality is that no one can love you if they don't get to know you. So as long as you're wearing a mask, there's no way for someone to love the true you. So it might take some time to adjust. It might hurt, it might be awkward, it might be scary, but there's so much life that can come from learning to remove your mask. So if you've gotten this far on this video, I am so excited for you, because that to me tells me that you are somebody that is wanting to live an authentic, impassioned, just life. I was gonna say life-filled life, but I know that you are wanting more than just walking around with a mask over your face saying everything's fine, that you're wanting true connection, true relationships, that you're wanting passion and emotion and all of those things to connect. And so this Halloween, I'm gonna ask you to not get dressed up. You can tonight if you want to, but moving forward, that you start to work on removing your mask, that you find your safe people, your safe situations, and you get prepared for what may come, but that you work on presenting your authentic self, because that is where you will find true life. All right, have a great day. Check out my website if you have any questions about my practice. It's at www.reallifecreativecounseling.com, and follow me on Facebook. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.